If you had only 1 minute left to live, what would you do? I never thought I'd be the one asking that question. I used to roll my eyes when I heard people talk about life flashing before your eyes, or seeing the light. I was a firefighter for 27 years, I saw people die, saw what was left behind. I believed death was final. Like closing a door and turning off the light. That was it. Nothing. Blackness. But I was wrong. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Cold, gray sky over Cincinnati. I remember stepping into the shower, groggy, my knees aching from an old ladder fall 10 years ago. Nothing unusual, just a normal day. Until it wasn't. I felt it like a gunshot behind my left eye. A sharp, hot flash, and then everything slowed down. My hands reached for the wall. Water pounded my back like thunder. I tried to call out, but no sound came. Then came the silence. I slid to the floor. My head hit the tile. I remember the cold. I remember my chest. Tight, no air, like a boulder sat right on it. My heart was beating like a hummingbird's wings, and then, it wasn't. There's no way to describe what it's like to hear your own heart stop. 1 second, chaos. The next, nothing. Black. Total silence. Then I heard voices. Distant. Echoing. Someone shouting my name, Frank. Stay with us, Frank. Then another, no pulse. He's coding. Get the paddles. I didn't realize it at the time, but my neighbor, bless her, heard me collapse and called 911. Paramedics found me naked, unconscious, blue. Technically, I was dead. Flatlined. No heartbeat. No breath. They rushed me to Mercy General. The ER team did everything right. Shocks. CPR. IVs. Machines. All while I, Frank Delaney, wasn't there. I was somewhere else. It started with the silence. Deafening. The kind of silence that presses on your ears like you're underwater. Then, a strange awareness. I could see, but my eyes were closed. I could hear, but not through my ears. And suddenly, I was looking down. I was above the gurney. I could see myself lying there, pale as wax. My lips were gray, arms limp, a tube down my throat. There were at least 5 people around me. One nurse was crying. I remember thinking, why is she crying? I'm right here. But I wasn't. Not really. I floated closer to the ceiling. The room looked surreal, washed in an odd glow, like a movie set. I could see the clock on the wall, 9:47 a.m. I hovered, weightless. No pain. No fear. Only stillness. Then, something changed. There was a pull, gentle, like a breeze. And then light. It didn't burst into the room. It unfolded. A soft, golden light that didn't blind, it welcomed. It felt alive. Warm, almost familiar. Like a lullaby sung from a place I forgot existed. I wasn't thinking with words anymore. It was all feelings, memories, emotions wrapped in understanding. Everything made sense. The pain I'd carried. The things I never forgave myself for. All of it, just let go. But just before I drifted further, I heard a voice. Not outside. Inside. Do you want to stay? I didn't answer right away. There was something else. Someone I couldn't quite see, but I felt them, near me. A presence so loving, so profoundly comforting, it made me want to weep. That was the moment I realized, I wasn't alone. Time didn't exist there. Minutes, hours, none of it mattered. It could have been seconds or centuries. I was outside of time, outside of pain. But my heart, what was left of it, ached for something. I saw faces. My son, Michael. My wife, gone 2 years now. My grandson's drawing still on my fridge at home. A wave of something like longing passed through me. Then, the voice again. You can stay. Or you can go back. And that was when everything changed. There was a sound, a thud. A deep, low hum. Like a bass drum hitting somewhere far away. I felt a yank, like gravity returning after floating in space. The light dimmed. The room came back into view. The nurse screamed, "We've got a pulse." I slammed back into my body like a crash landing. My chest exploded with pain. My head burned. The first breath was like breathing fire. I screamed. I was alive. But nothing would ever be the same. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? I woke up to the sound of beeping, constant, mechanical, like a metronome ticking away at my survival. I was in a hospital bed, surrounded by a blur of white walls and sterile air. The pain was excruciating, like my body had been slammed into the ground after being stretched beyond its limits. I couldn't move my arms or legs, they felt heavy, as if someone had attached concrete blocks to them. But the strangest part? I didn't feel me in that body. Not fully. I was above it, watching, floating. I looked down and saw my own face, pale and ghostly. The tubes in my nose, the wires attached to my chest, the oxygen mask slipping off my face. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, or worse, trapped in some kind of nightmare. But there was no fear. Only a strange sense of calm that I couldn't explain. I didn't belong there. Not anymore. I wasn't sure where there was anymore either. The sensation of weightlessness hit me immediately. It felt like I was floating, or more accurately, hovering. There was no up or down, no direction, no center of gravity to pull me in one way or another. Just freedom. Unfathomable freedom. I looked around. The hospital room seemed so far away now, as though the walls had been stretched thin, the floor sinking away into a vast space beyond my sight. The air was different here, clearer, sharper. It smelled nothing like the sterile hospital scent that clung to the sheets and the machines. This air felt more like home. It was difficult to pinpoint, but I felt it. I wasn't alone in this space. I saw shadows flicker in the corners of my vision, but they weren't threatening. They were soft, gentle. In fact, they felt oddly familiar. Like whispers from people I had known, people who had passed long before me. The shadows didn't say anything, but they felt like comfort. Like a promise. And then, it happened. A brilliant light pierced through the shadows, not harsh or blinding, but soft and warm. It washed over me, glowing gold and white. It wasn't the harsh light of an operating room or a searchlight aimed at a target. No, this light was different. This light had no edges. It flowed like liquid, filling every part of me. My soul, if that's what you could call it, seemed to be drawn to it, like iron to a magnet. Without thinking, I drifted closer. As I got closer, I felt it. A pull. Not physical, but emotional, a magnetic, irresistible force that made me want to reach out and surrender to it. It was so overwhelmingly loving, so welcoming, that I almost wanted to stay there forever. It was peace in its purest form, something beyond human comprehension. I wasn't afraid. In fact, I felt nothing but a sense of profound belonging, as if this was where I was always meant to be. I floated closer, the light wrapping around me, touching my very essence. And then, I heard it, a voice, not with my ears, but deep inside me, a voice that wasn't mine. It didn't speak words exactly, but I understood it. The message was clear: you are loved. You are home. I wanted to laugh, to cry. I wanted to weep for all the things I hadn't understood in life, for all the suffering and loss that had seemed so important before. In this place, it didn't matter. The pain didn't matter. The fears didn't matter. There was nothing but warmth and understanding. The light, whatever it was, wasn't just light. It had a presence. It felt like a person, even though it wasn't a person. It was something beyond the confines of human experience, something greater than I could put into words. I had heard stories of near-death experiences, but none of them had described this feeling, the raw, undeniable truth that I wasn't just floating in the unknown. I was held. I was seen. I was loved. And then, out of nowhere, I heard a voice again. This time, it wasn't a whisper. It was firm, but kind. It spoke to me directly. You have a choice. My heart skipped a beat. Or rather, I should say, my essence skipped a beat. Because in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just floating in some cosmic waiting room. I wasn't just drifting in an endless sea of light. I was being given a choice. The voice continued, you can stay, or you can go back. It's up to you. But if you go back, your life will change. You will not be the same. The weight of those words hit me like a ton of bricks. A choice. To stay here in this peace, or go back to the world I had left behind. I thought about my family, about Michael, my son, my only child. I thought about the grief I had carried since Sarah's passing, how her death had shattered everything I knew. Could I leave him behind? Could I leave all the unfinished things that clung to me, holding me here on earth? My thoughts swirled in the light. The pull to stay was so strong, so tempting. It was everything I had ever wanted, a final, peaceful rest. A way to escape the harshness of life, the pain, the regret. But then, something inside me snapped into focus. I didn't just want to escape. I didn't just want to leave everything behind. No. What I wanted, what I needed, was to heal. To live. I needed to go back. Before I could even fully grasp my decision, I felt the warmth around me shift. The light gently faded. The soothing presence slipped away, leaving behind a faint echo of its peace. The pull toward the light became less urgent, and suddenly, I felt myself moving again. Falling. Falling back into the cold, harsh reality of my body. I wasn't sure what I had chosen. I wasn't sure if I had made the right decision. But one thing was certain. I was coming back. When I woke up, it wasn't like waking from a regular sleep. This wasn't a groggy blink of the eyes, or a stretch to loosen stiff limbs. No, this was a jolt, one that felt like I was being pulled back into a body that wasn't quite my own. Pain hit me first. A sharp, unbearable sensation in my chest. The beeping machines went off like alarm bells. I gasped for air, deep, ragged breaths that filled my lungs with the sharp sting of reality. The kind of breaths you take when you're reminded that you're alive, whether you want to be or not. I opened my eyes. It wasn't a soft return, but a violent one, like a rubber band snapping back after being stretched too far. But what I saw, when I blinked against the fluorescent lights, wasn't just the sterile hospital room or the face of the nurse standing over me, her hands shaking as she adjusted the oxygen mask. It was something else. The world around me felt different. Unfamiliar. There was a tingling in my hands, an electric, almost vibrational sensation that made me pull my fingers towards my palms. I hadn't felt anything like this before. And there was a faint hum in the air. Low, constant, like the pulse of something ancient and alive. It wasn't the hum of the machines. It was something deeper, something that vibrated beneath the skin. I turned my head, slowly. And there it was. It wasn't a place, exactly. Not like the hospital or a room, at least. It was more like a state of being. Like walking into a dream that wasn't confined by walls. I could see it now, the flickering lights, the faces. People. I could feel them. At first, I couldn't understand who they were, but I felt them clearly. The air felt heavy with a presence that surrounded me like a soft blanket. And then, there, I saw her. The woman standing at the edge of my vision, just beyond the doorway of the hospital room. Her outline was faint, but I knew her the instant I saw her. It was her. My mother. She had passed when I was just a boy, left a hole in my life that I had tried for decades to fill. But now, here she was, standing before me. She was smiling, warm and kind, with that same expression she always wore when she was proud of me. Her face was as soft and loving as I remembered. Her voice. I could hear it too, though not with my ears. I could hear her words echo in my mind, clear as day. It's okay, Frank. You're safe. You're home. Tears instantly filled my eyes. I didn't understand what was happening. How was she here? Was she alive? No, that didn't make sense. I had seen her buried, felt the loss for years. But here she was, looking exactly as she had when I was a kid. I felt my breath catch, and I blinked hard to make sure I wasn't imagining it. But the presence of her love, her warmth, was undeniable. Mom. I whispered, my voice cracking, barely audible. She didn't respond verbally, but I felt her answer. A rush of comfort flooded through me. She didn't need to speak to make me understand. She was there to help me navigate this strange in-between place. And that's when it hit me, I wasn't just seeing things. This wasn't a hallucination. This was real. This was the other side. I tried to reach out, but my hand passed right through her, like I was trying to touch smoke. My heart clenched, the familiar grief of her loss taking hold of me once again. But she didn't fade. She stood there, watching me with a loving gaze, her arms outstretched as if she was waiting for me to understand something I hadn't yet grasped. You can stay, she said again, her voice soft. But it's not your time yet. You have things left to do. I didn't want to hear that. The peace here was so strong, the light so comforting. Why couldn't I just stay? What was left for me to do in the world of the living? I felt a pull. Not an aggressive force, but a gentle tug. It was familiar, like the force of gravity, but not pulling me down. It was a subtle reminder that I belonged in the world of the living still. There was something unfinished. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay with her. To stay in this place of pure peace, where everything was right, where everything made sense. But then, the presence of my mother began to fade. She smiled, that same smile she'd given me so many times before. The smile that told me everything would be okay, that I would be okay. Remember, Frank, she whispered, though her lips didn't move. You're not alone. You never were. And just like that, the vision of her began to blur. I reached out to her, but she slipped away, dissolving into the air around me. The space around me seemed to pull back, retreating, like it had never been there at all. The hospital room returned with startling clarity, the beeping of machines, the soft murmur of voices outside. But the feeling of peace stayed with me. It lingered, like a warmth I couldn't shake. I wasn't in the light anymore, but I wasn't completely here either. What was this? What had I just experienced? I sat up with difficulty, my limbs heavy, and for a moment, I thought maybe I'd never quite come back. That somehow, I was straddling two worlds. It didn't make sense, but the feelings were clear, I was connected to something far greater than this life. And it wasn't just my mother's spirit I had encountered. There was something bigger, more powerful than I could understand. Something had changed in me. I couldn't explain it in words. But whatever I just touched, whatever I had just seen and felt, it was a truth I couldn't ignore. And I didn't know it yet, but it was the beginning of my journey back to life. The room around me spun as I tried to sit up, my head throbbing in ways I couldn't understand. I blinked hard, the world still feeling unreal, like I had one foot in this world and the other in, wherever I had just been. My body felt foreign to me. Heavy. Tired. I wasn't sure if it was the lingering effects of the heart attack, or the experience I'd just had. It wasn't a dream, it couldn't have been. Too vivid, too real. But if that was real, then where was I now? I looked at the clock beside my bed. It was 10:23 a.m. How long had I been unconscious? Had it only been a few minutes? It felt like days. Maybe weeks. But in the quiet of the room, all I could hear was my pulse, faint but steady, and the soft hum of the machines around me. I focused on my chest, feeling the faint flutter of my heart, and for a moment, I was overwhelmed with an emotion I hadn't expected, grief. Grief for what I had just left behind. I knew my mother was gone. I had seen her, felt her. But in the same moment, I knew that she hadn't really left. I could still feel her presence, like a warmth in my chest. A comfort that calmed the panic rising within me. But that was the thing, the pull. It was a pull back to life. Back to the world of the living. As I lay there, my mind wandered back to the moment before I was pulled from the light, before everything shifted back to this cold reality. I had felt the choice hanging in the air, palpable and powerful. Stay in peace or return to the chaos. A simple choice. Or, at least, it seemed simple. But it wasn't. I wasn't ready to admit it, but I knew the choice was never just about whether I wanted to live or die. It was about purpose. The world I had left behind wasn't perfect. It wasn't peaceful. There was pain, yes, and loss. There was regret that gnawed at me every day. But there was also love, and responsibility, and unfinished business. I hadn't come to terms with Sarah's death. I hadn't told Michael enough how much I loved him. I had never gotten the chance to say goodbye to my father. And then there were the little things, the moments in life that pass by without us ever realizing they're important until it's too late. Could I just leave all of that behind? Could I really abandon the world I had fought so hard to be a part of? The answer wasn't easy. I had been given the ultimate choice, to remain in peace, free from pain, or to return to a world that felt broken and uncertain. It was the most fundamental decision I'd ever had to make. As I sat there in that sterile hospital room, my eyes scanning the machines that beeped and hummed with life, I realized I wasn't alone. There were people in this room. Real people, fighting for me. There was my son. My grandson. My neighbors, my friends. And deep down, I knew, if I chose to stay, I wouldn't just be leaving behind the world. I'd be leaving behind them too. The people who loved me. The people who needed me. I thought of my son, Michael, his face when he first saw me lying in that hospital bed, pale and lifeless. I thought of the heartache I had caused him, of the hours he must have spent in that waiting room, praying for a miracle. Would I really walk away from that? From him? I couldn't. I couldn't abandon him, or the life we had left to build together. The choice was clear now. I had to return. It wasn't an easy decision. Nothing about this was. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the emotions settle in me. I felt the warmth of the light once more, a soft brush against my consciousness, but it was fading now, like a memory slowly slipping away. And though I couldn't stay in that light, I could take the peace with me. I could carry it back into this world, into my life. I didn't know what it meant, or what I would face when I returned, but I understood one thing: I had unfinished work to do. There was still more love to give. More lessons to learn. More lives to touch. With that realization, the hum of the machines grew louder in my ears, pulling me back to the present. I felt my body come alive again, my fingers twitching, my legs shifting, my lungs drawing in more air. But as I returned to my body, there was something different. I wasn't just alive, I felt awake. Not in the way you wake up from sleep, but in a deeper, more spiritual way. I felt like I had truly returned to myself, like I had been given a second chance. I opened my eyes again, this time with more clarity. The pain was still there. The weight of my body still felt unfamiliar, like I hadn't fully settled back into it. But that didn't matter anymore. I was here. I had come back. And I had a new purpose. The choice wasn't just about living or dying, it was about truly living. Fully, deeply, without hesitation. It was about embracing the messy, complicated beauty of life, no matter how hard it got. I wasn't sure where this journey would take me, but one thing was certain. I wasn't afraid anymore. The world around me felt strangely sharper now. Every color, every sound, every scent was more vivid, more intense than I'd remembered. It was as if my senses had been recalibrated, heightened by the experience I had just gone through. But the odd thing was, I didn't feel completely like myself. I had come back, yes, but it was like I had left a piece of me behind in that light. A piece that had been reclaimed by whatever force had shown me the truth. It was hard to explain. How could you put words to an experience that had no clear boundaries, no clear beginning or end? The air in the hospital room felt thinner now, almost like I was standing on the edge of something. But this wasn't just a physical sensation. It was a mental one too. I felt as if I had one foot still in the other side, in that peaceful, serene place, and one foot here in the world of noise, of pain, of unresolved issues. And it was here, in this strange in-between state, that I began to hear the lesson I had been sent back to learn. It wasn't an immediate realization, not one that I could articulate right away. It came to me slowly, in pieces, like a puzzle being pieced together bit by bit. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. What was this experience all about? Why had I been brought back? It wasn't just to survive the heart attack, to simply carry on as if nothing had happened. It wasn't enough to return to the normal life I'd left behind. No, the purpose was far more profound than that. The message was living, truly, deeply living, not just surviving. For so much of my life, I had been afraid. Afraid of loss. Afraid of failure. Afraid of facing the inevitable, death. It had haunted me, subtly, in the background of every decision I made. It kept me from connecting fully with those I loved. It kept me from being vulnerable, from experiencing the depth of human emotion. It kept me small, contained, hiding behind walls I had built to protect myself from pain. But that was the lie, wasn't it? That avoidance was what kept me from truly living. It was the fear that separated me from everything beautiful, everything meaningful in this world. And here, in this strange space between life and death, I had learned the truth. The only way to truly live is to embrace everything. The pain, the joy, the heartache, the love. To take it all in, without fear of the consequences. I thought about Sarah, how her death had consumed me. For years, I had let that grief define me. I carried it around like a weight, letting it rule every moment, every relationship. And it wasn't just Sarah. It was all the losses, all the disappointments. I had been clinging to them, unable to let go. But in the light, I had understood something fundamental. Letting go wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't about erasing the past, or pretending it didn't matter. It was about freeing myself from its grip, from the hold it had on my soul. It was about realizing that the people we love, the memories we cherish, they're never truly gone. They are always with us, in the way we live, in the way we love, in the way we carry their lessons forward. I could feel that truth now, deep in my heart. I wasn't just meant to survive this second chance at life. I was meant to transform it. I looked at the machines surrounding me, the sterile white walls, the sounds of footsteps outside the room. The world was the same, but it wasn't. It was filled with possibility, if only I would open myself to it. I knew there was no way I could go back to being the same person. How could I? I had seen the other side. I had felt the deep peace that came from knowing there was something more. I had touched the eternal, and it had changed me. The fear that once held me back seemed to dissipate. It was still there, but now, it was like a distant echo, something that didn't have the same hold on me as it once did. I understood now that the fear of death wasn't what mattered. What mattered was how I lived. I reached for the call button beside my bed. I needed to talk to someone. I wasn't ready to face the world just yet. I wasn't ready to fully walk away from the peace I had felt, the truth I had learned. But I knew I had to try. I had to speak about it, to put it into words. The nurse entered moments later, a warm, concerned smile on her face. "You're awake," she said gently, adjusting the blanket around my legs. "How are you feeling?" I could feel the change in me, the shift. I wasn't the same man who had lain on this bed before. But I didn't know how to explain it to her. How could I? How could I explain the incredible journey I had just experienced, the deep, profound truth that I had touched? "I feel different," I finally said, my voice shaky but sure. "I don't know how to explain it." She looked at me with a gentle smile, her eyes full of empathy. "That's okay. You don't have to explain everything right away. You've been through something big, and it'll take time for everything to make sense." I nodded, her words providing some comfort. I didn't need to understand everything all at once. But I knew that I had been given a gift. A chance to live differently. To live with intention. To let go of the past and embrace the present, to love more freely, to forgive more easily, to cherish every moment. And so, I began. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight. But I started to live as if every moment was a precious gift, because, in a way, it was. The light, the peace, the warmth, they hadn't been an illusion. They had been a reminder. A reminder that I wasn't alone. That none of us are. And that whatever comes after this life, it's not something to fear. It's something to embrace. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The days following my awakening in that sterile hospital room were a blur. Every moment felt like a step on a path I was only beginning to understand. My body felt like it was trying to catch up to my mind, as if the two were operating on different wavelengths, like one part of me was living in the present, and the other was still caught in the afterglow of the light I had encountered. I remember the first time I stepped outside the hospital. The sun felt brighter, the air fresher, and the sounds of the world around me, children laughing, cars honking, even the rustling of the leaves in the trees, seemed to echo in my ears as if I were hearing it all for the first time. My senses were heightened. More acute. And in a way, the world seemed softer, too. As if the edges had been rounded by my experience, and I could now see the beauty in everything, even the smallest details. But with that heightened awareness came a strange sort of vulnerability. The emotions I had once guarded so carefully, buried deep beneath the surface, came rushing to the forefront. I found myself tearing up at moments I hadn't before, watching an elderly couple hold hands, hearing the laughter of my grandchildren, even seeing an old photograph of Sarah. I felt it all, deeply, and it was both beautiful and overwhelming. I also began to notice the subtle ways I was changing. I didn't just see the world differently, I felt it differently. I saw the pain in others, their struggles, their grief, and it resonated with me in a way it never had before. The walls I'd built around myself were beginning to crumble, piece by piece. And with each crumbling stone, I realized something important: I was no longer afraid. Fear had always been my constant companion, fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of death. But now, that fear felt distant. Not gone, but softened. The fear of death was replaced by a curiosity, a knowing that there was something beyond this life, something more than what we can see or touch. I began to talk to people more openly about my experience. At first, it was hard to find the words. How could I explain what I had seen, what I had felt, to those who hadn't experienced it themselves? How could I describe the light, the overwhelming sense of love, the quiet peace that enveloped me on the other side? But as I shared my story with those closest to me, I found that the more I spoke, the more I understood. Talking about it helped me process it, helped me integrate the lessons into my daily life. It was like finding a new language to describe what had once been intangible. I spoke to Michael first. He was hesitant at first, unsure how to respond. He had been so scared when I had gone into the hospital, so sure that he was about to lose me. And when I told him about my experience, I could see the skepticism in his eyes. He didn't understand. Not yet. But he listened, and that meant the world to me. "You really believe that?" he asked one evening, his voice quiet, unsure. "I do," I said. "It's not just something I saw, Michael. It's something I felt. Something I know now." He didn't reply at first. He just looked at me, his brow furrowed, clearly trying to process what I had shared. But then he gave me a small nod. "Okay," he said. "I trust you. Anne. I'm glad you're back with us." It wasn't much, but it was enough. It was all I needed to feel like I wasn't alone in this new understanding of life and death. Over time, I could see Michael change, too. He began to ask more questions, to seek deeper answers, and slowly, he started to embrace the possibility that there was more to our existence than what we could explain with logic or science. I remember a conversation I had with my neighbor, Lisa, a few weeks later. She had heard bits and pieces about my heart attack and recovery, and she was eager to hear the details. I had grown to trust her, and there was something in her eyes that made me feel comfortable enough to open up. "You really think you saw your mother?" she asked, a mixture of disbelief and wonder in her voice. "I don't think it, Lisa," I said, feeling the certainty that had settled deep inside me. "I know it. It was her. I can't explain it any other way. She was there, and she told me that everything was going to be okay. That I wasn't alone." Lisa's eyes welled up with tears. "That's beautiful, Frank. I can't imagine what that must have been like." "It was," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It was like coming home. I felt at peace, more than I've ever felt in my whole life. But I had to come back. There's still so much I need to do here." I didn't fully understand why I had been sent back, but I felt as if the experience had awakened a sense of purpose in me that I couldn't ignore. There was still love to give, lessons to teach, and people to forgive. There were conversations I had to have, things left unsaid that needed to be said. There were pieces of myself that I had neglected for far too long, and it was time to put them back together. One of the hardest things to accept was the realization that I wasn't the only one who had been changed by my experience. Everyone around me was affected, in ways both big and small. The people I loved, the ones I had hurt, and even the strangers I passed on the street, all of them were a part of this journey, and their lives would continue to intertwine with mine, as I continued to grow and learn from what I had experienced. In those quiet moments of reflection, I realized something crucial: we are all in this together. No one has all the answers, and no one can walk this path alone. We need each other. We need to share our stories, our truths, and our struggles. Because it's through that connection that we find meaning. That we find peace. And that, I think, was the most important lesson of all. The days after I left the hospital were a blur, a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and confusion. I had come back to life, literally, and yet, somehow, it felt like I had also stepped into a world that wasn't quite my own anymore. My body was mine again, but my soul, my spirit, it felt like it had been somewhere else. Somewhere deeper. Somewhere that left me with more questions than answers. I returned home to the familiar sights and sounds of my small, cozy house. The creaking of the front door, the smell of fresh coffee brewing in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator running. It was all so ordinary, and yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just stepped back into a different dimension, like I was a visitor in a place I no longer understood. When I walked through the door, it hit me. The walls were the same. The furniture, the photos on the walls, even the dog-eared books on the shelves, they were the same. But somehow, everything felt distant. I felt distant. I wasn't the man who had lived in this house before. I had seen the other side. I had touched something beyond life, and it was impossible to go back to who I was before. There was no denying it. The peace I had felt, the warmth, the love, it was still with me, just beneath the surface. But how could I continue living in this world that seemed so frantic, so full of noise and distraction? How could I integrate what I had experienced with a life that felt so disconnected from what I had just left behind? I spent the first few days in a haze, trying to reclaim some sense of normalcy. I went through the motions, made my bed, paid my bills, checked in with friends, but it all felt surreal, like I was watching it happen to someone else. I was trying to find my footing again, but I didn't know where to step. Then, one afternoon, Michael came over to visit. He'd been staying with me during my recovery, but the hospital stay had taken a toll on both of us. He had been my rock, staying by my side through everything, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the strain on his face. It was as if he hadn't quite processed everything either. "Dad," he said, setting down his bag and sitting across from me at the kitchen table. "How are you really feeling?" I looked at him, really looked at him. His face was older than I remembered, more lined, more tired. It struck me for the first time, he was getting older, too. We had both been caught in a whirlwind of emotions after everything that had happened, and in the chaos of the hospital, I hadn't fully realized how much this had affected him. He hadn't just lost me, he had almost lost everything. I'm still trying to figure it out," I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. "It's like I came back, but I'm not the same person anymore. And I don't think you are either." He didn't speak at first, just looked at me, his hands folded in his lap. Then he sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "I know, Dad. I know. I've been thinking about it too. The thing is, I don't know what to do with all of it. What you said about, what you saw, where you went, what you felt. It makes me wonder if everything I thought I knew is wrong." I could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted to believe me, he really did. But how could he? How could anyone truly understand what it was like on the other side unless they had been there themselves? "I don't know what to tell you, Michael," I said. "All I know is, I came back with something I didn't have before, a deeper understanding, a different perspective. And it's not just about me anymore. It's about all of us. About everyone." I leaned forward, my hands resting on the table, as I tried to find the words to convey what was in my heart. "You don't have to be afraid," I continued. "Of death. Of loss. We all have so much more time than we realize. And we're not alone. I wasn't alone in that light, and I know I'm not alone here either. You're not alone." The words felt strange coming out of my mouth, but they felt right, too. I had spoken to my mother there, and to Sarah, and now, I had the words to say what needed to be said, to Michael, to myself, and to the world. "You have to stop carrying all that fear around, son," I added. "It's weighing you down." He was quiet for a moment, as if contemplating everything I had said. Finally, he spoke. "I don't know if I can do that, Dad. I don't know if I can just let go of all the fear. It's been with me for so long." "I understand that," I said gently. "I've carried it too. For years. But the thing is, the fear isn't going to help us. It won't make anything better. It's just a wall we build to keep ourselves safe, but in the process, we keep ourselves from living." I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. He wasn't ready yet. I could feel it. But there was something else there, too. A flicker of something. A seed of hope. "I'll try, Dad. I'll try," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "But I don't know how." "You don't have to know how right now," I replied. Just take it one day at a time. We'll figure it out together. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just my journey. It was ours. We were all on this path together, learning and growing, struggling and healing. As I watched Michael leave later that afternoon, I realized something important. The return wasn't just about coming back to life, it was about living more fully, more consciously. It was about reconnecting with the world, not just with myself but with everyone around me. It was about forging new relationships, rebuilding old ones, and taking responsibility for the love and connection we shared. I had returned, yes. But now, I had to return to life. And in that process, I would rediscover what it meant to truly be alive. It's funny how life has a way of showing you things when you're least prepared for them, and it's even funnier how we can spend years thinking we have all the answers, only to find out we don't know anything at all. After my return from the hospital, I thought I understood everything. I had been given the chance to come back from the brink of death, after all. I had felt the presence of something beyond this life, something far greater than I had ever imagined. But as the days went by, I started to realize that there was more to this experience than I had initially understood. The truth I had glimpsed in that moment of peace, the love I had felt in the light, it wasn't just a comforting thought. It was a call to action. At first, it felt like I was merely going through the motions. I had learned about living in the moment, embracing the connections I had with the people around me, but there was something more that was starting to itch at the back of my mind. Something I couldn't ignore. It was the question of why. Why had I been brought back? Why was I given this second chance? I had come back with a heart full of peace, but I had no clear direction. No clear purpose. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something important, but I couldn't see what lay beyond. And then, one evening, it happened. I was sitting alone in the living room, the house quiet except for the soft hum of the lights and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I was looking through an old photo album, flipping through memories of Sarah, of my children when they were young. The past seemed so distant, yet so present, as if the people and places in those photographs were still with me, just out of reach. I paused on a picture of Sarah and me. We were standing by a lake, the sun setting behind us, our arms wrapped around each other. I felt a wave of emotion wash over me, love, loss, and an aching sense of regret. I realized, for the first time, that the reason I had been given this second chance was not to wallow in grief or to hide behind the walls I had built to protect myself. It wasn't about clinging to the past or to the memories of those I had lost. It was about what came next. It was about what I could do with the time I had left. I set the photo album down and walked outside, stepping onto the porch and gazing up at the sky. The stars were shining brightly, the air crisp and cool. I felt a pull, something deep within me. Something that wasn't just about me, it was about everyone. I stood there, feeling the wind on my face, and the thought came to me as clear as day. This is what it's all about. This is the revelation. It wasn't just about accepting the fact of death or embracing the present moment. It was about understanding that our lives are interconnected. It was about recognizing that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves, a vast, ever-changing tapestry of experience, love, and loss. And the most important thing wasn't what happened when we die, it was how we lived while we were here. The fear, the anxiety, the obsession with control and perfection, it all seemed so small now. So insignificant compared to the bigger picture. It wasn't about trying to hold on to what we have. It was about letting go and trusting that everything we need is already here, already within us. I had spent so much of my life focused on myself, on my own desires, my own fears, my own regrets. But now, I understood. The answers weren't in what I could control or what I could achieve. The answers were in how I connected with others. How I loved them, how I let them love me, how I let go of my own walls and allowed myself to be vulnerable. That was the real purpose. I thought of Sarah again, of how we had always been so busy trying to make life perfect, chasing after the next thing, the next achievement, the next milestone. And all the while, the things that mattered most, love, connection, compassion, had been waiting for us to notice them. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, and let the stillness of the night settle around me. I wasn't sure where this journey would take me next, but I knew one thing for certain: I wasn't going to waste any more time. I wasn't going to hold on to fear or regret. I was going to live fully, with every ounce of love and gratitude I had within me. The revelation wasn't about death. It was about life. About how we live, how we love, and how we embrace the present moment. And in that moment, I felt a deep peace, a peace that came from knowing that I had finally understood. I had finally seen it. The truth wasn't just a one-time experience, a fleeting glimpse of something greater. It was something that had always been here, in front of me. It was in the way we treat each other, in the way we hold on and let go, in the way we connect. And with that realization, I felt something else, too. The light wasn't gone. It wasn't just something I had experienced and then lost. The light was here, in the world around me. In the people I loved. In the moments we shared. And I knew that I had been given the greatest gift of all, the opportunity to live with intention. To live with purpose. To live with love. The days following my revelation felt like a new chapter in my life had begun. Every day was different, but it wasn't just the external world that had changed, it was the world inside me. I had come to understand something so simple, yet so profound: the choices we make, in every moment, are what shape our lives. It wasn't enough to understand the truth of existence, now, I had to live it. And living it meant making conscious choices. For the first time, I realized that every choice I made, from how I treated others to how I treated myself, mattered. And with that realization came a weight I hadn't expected. The weight of responsibility. Before my heart attack, before everything that had happened, I had taken life for granted. I had assumed I had endless time to make changes, to repair relationships, to be the person I knew I could be. But now I knew better. Now I understood that time was a gift, one that couldn't be wasted. And in that understanding came a deep desire to make things right, to live in alignment with the lessons I had learned. But even with that clarity, I still faced a challenge. The choices before me weren't always clear. The people around me weren't all on the same journey. And there were moments when I felt the pull of the old life, the familiar patterns, the habits, the things that had once felt safe but now seemed limiting. It was like stepping out of a fog and into the light only to realize the world you once knew was no longer a good fit. The temptation to retreat, to take the easier road, was strong. I'll never forget the conversation I had with Michael one evening. We were sitting in the living room, a few months after I had returned home. I had noticed a change in him, too. He seemed less restless, more at peace, but still uncertain. He had started talking about his own struggles, the fear he still carried deep inside him. He was still afraid of losing me, of losing everything. "Dad, I've been thinking a lot about what you said," Michael began, his voice hesitant. "About letting go of fear and living in the moment. I want to believe it. I really do. But I don't know if I can make that change. It's like, every time I try, the old fears just come rushing back." I listened, understanding exactly what he meant. The old fears were never really gone, not completely. They could hide for a while, but they always had a way of creeping back in when you least expected it. "You're not alone, Michael," I said, leaning forward and meeting his eyes. "The fear doesn't just go away. It's something we learn to live with. We learn to make choices in spite of it. Every day is a new chance to choose something different. But you don't have to do it all at once. Take it one step at a time. Even small changes matter." He nodded slowly, as if processing the weight of my words. "I know," he said quietly. "But what if I make the wrong choice? What if I mess it up?" I smiled, a knowing smile. I had asked myself that same question many times after my return, wondering if I was truly ready to live the way I felt I was supposed to. But the truth was, there was no such thing as a perfect choice. Life wasn't about being perfect, it was about being present. You will mess up, I said, my voice soft but firm. We all do. The important thing isn't that we're perfect, it's that we get back up and keep moving forward. We choose again. Every day. Michael sighed, but it was a relieved sigh. I guess I can try that. You are trying, I said. Every day. And that's enough. But it wasn't just Michael who faced choices. It was me, too. I had to choose how I would live from here on out. I could easily slip back into old patterns, playing it safe, avoiding vulnerability, staying in my comfort zone. I had the option to retreat into a life where I didn't have to take risks. Where I could simply go through the motions and pretend like everything was fine. But that wasn't what I had come back for. No, I had been given a second chance at life for a reason. The choice was mine. I could continue living like I had before, in fear and denial, or I could embrace the uncertainty, step into the unknown, and make the kind of life I wanted to lead. The choice to truly live was the choice to be vulnerable. It was the choice to face my own mortality and choose to make every day count. It was the choice to love, to forgive, to grow. That decision wasn't easy. There were days when I doubted myself. There were moments when I questioned if I was really making the right choices. But each time I faced those doubts, I came back to one simple truth. I was here. I was alive. And that in itself was the greatest gift. I started making the changes I had long ignored. I reached out to people I had drifted away from, old friends, estranged family members, and began the slow process of rebuilding connections that mattered. I called Sarah's sister, Kathy, for the first time in years. We had lost touch after Sarah passed, and the distance between us had grown. But I knew now that holding on to past wounds only kept me from moving forward. When I heard Kathy's voice on the phone, I felt a wave of emotion rush over me. It was like hearing Sarah again. The connection was still there, and it hadn't gone anywhere. The only thing that had changed was me. "Hi, Kathy," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "It's Frank. I've been thinking a lot about you, and, well, I wanted to reach out. I'm sorry it's taken me so long." She was silent for a moment before answering, her voice soft but warm. "It's okay, Frank. I'm just glad you called." And that was it. The wall had come down. The fear of reaching out, of being vulnerable, of facing the awkwardness of reconnecting, it all melted away in that moment. It was a small step, but it was the first step in many. The choices weren't always easy, but they were always worth it. Each one, each moment, was an opportunity to live the life I was meant to live, not the life I thought I should live, but the one that felt true to who I had become. In the end, the choice was simple. It wasn't about whether I would live or die. It was about how I would live. And I knew now, without a shadow of a doubt, that I had made the right choice. It's strange, isn't it? The way we spend so much of our lives chasing after something, whether it's success, love, recognition, or meaning. And then, when we truly stop and look at everything we've accumulated, we realize that what we were searching for was never really out there at all. It was always within us. And in those rare, fleeting moments of clarity, we finally understand what it means to be at peace. As the months passed after my revelation, I began to see the world in a way I had never seen it before. The little things, the sound of birds chirping in the morning, the warmth of the sun on my face, the laughter of my children, became more precious. They were no longer just passing moments. They were all I had. And they were all I needed. I had come to understand that life wasn't a race. It wasn't about achieving more, doing more, accumulating more. It was about being present. About appreciating the gift of now. And it was about love, the love we share with others and the love we learn to give to ourselves. That understanding became my guiding light. It was as if I had shed an old skin, an old way of thinking, and had emerged into a new world, one that was full of possibility but also full of peace. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, I thought back to everything that had happened, the heart attack, the near-death experience, the pain, the loss, the awakening. And I realized that everything had led me here, to this moment. A moment of stillness, a moment of acceptance. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of death, not of failure, not of the unknown. I had accepted that life was unpredictable. It was fragile. And it was beautiful, in all its imperfection. I had made my peace with it. I had made my peace with myself. And yet, as I sat there, I also realized that I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know everything, and I certainly didn't have it all figured out. But that, too, was okay. The peace didn't come from having everything figured out. It came from the willingness to let go of the need for control, the need for certainty. It came from trusting the journey, even when it didn't make sense. In that moment, I felt something shift inside me. It was as if the weight of all my fears, all my regrets, all my doubts had finally lifted. I wasn't carrying the past anymore. I wasn't holding on to what was no longer mine to keep. I was free. And in that freedom, I felt a deep sense of connection. A connection to everything and everyone around me. To Michael. To Kathy. To Sarah, whose love still lingered in my heart. To all the people I had met and all the lives I had touched, even if it was only in small, fleeting ways. This was the peace I had been searching for, and it wasn't found in any grand revelation. It wasn't found in any external success or achievement. It was found in the quiet acceptance of what is. In the surrender to life as it comes, knowing that we are part of something much greater than ourselves. And it was in that surrender, that deep, profound peace, that I understood the final truth: death is not something to fear. It's simply a part of the cycle of life. The beginning and the end are intertwined, inseparable. Life flows through us, and when it's time, we pass that energy on, to the next chapter, to the next soul, to the next life. I thought of the light I had seen. The love that had embraced me. It wasn't gone. It was still here, in everything and everyone. I was part of it. It was part of me. And that, I realized, was the ultimate truth. As I sat there, the sky darkening above me, I felt at peace in a way I had never felt before. There was no more fear. No more confusion. No more doubt. Just a deep, unshakable knowing that everything was as it should be. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill my lungs. I let go of everything, the past, the worries, the expectations, and just was. In that moment, I wasn't afraid of what was to come. I wasn't even thinking about what had already passed. I was simply living, fully present in the here and now. And in that stillness, I found peace. The peace of knowing that, no matter what happens, I am exactly where I need to be. That all of it, the life, the love, the lessons, the pain, the joy, was part of the same journey. And that journey, in the end, was the most beautiful thing of all. I had died and come back to life. And in doing so, I had discovered the greatest truth of all. Life is a gift. Death is not the end. And peace, true peace, comes when we stop searching for it, when we stop striving for it, and simply let it be. And with that peace, I knew I was ready. Whatever came next, I was ready. The doorbell rang. I had been expecting him, but the moment he stepped inside, I couldn't help but feel the tightness in my chest. Michael, my son, stood there, his eyes uncertain, his hands nervously fumbling with the hem of his jacket. We hadn't spoken much since I came back from the hospital, and the years of silence between us hung heavy in the air. "Hey, Dad," he said softly, his voice carrying an undertone of unease. I could see the distance in his eyes. The distance I had created, the wall I'd built between us all those years. "Hey, Michael," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I wanted to reach out, to say something that could heal the wound I had caused. But the words were stuck in my throat, trapped by the years of regret and unspoken apologies. We stood there for a moment, neither of us sure what to say next. Then, finally, Michael spoke again. I've been thinking about everything. About you, about what happened, after. His words cut through me like a knife. What happened after, he mentioned, the heart attack, the near-death experience, had brought me back to life, but it had also brought me face to face with all the mistakes I had made, especially with him. I never meant to hurt you, I said, my voice breaking. I've always loved you, Michael. But I didn't know how to show it. I was so wrapped up in my own mess that I froze you out. I thought I was protecting you by being distant, by not showing my feelings. But I was wrong. I'm sorry. The apology hung in the air, awkward and long overdue. Michael looked at me for a moment, his expression unreadable. I couldn't tell if he was angry, hurt, or just numb to the words. But then, something shifted in his eyes. You've been through a lot, Dad, he said quietly, stepping closer. I get it. I'm not mad at you anymore. I just didn't know how to reach you. I didn't know if you even cared. I couldn't speak. I wanted to tell him how much I cared, how much I had always cared, but the lump in my throat was too tight. I looked down, my hand shaking as I reached for something on the table. I grabbed the journal I had kept after my NDE. The pages filled with the raw, unfiltered thoughts of someone who had seen the other side. I held it out to him, my hands trembling. I wrote this after everything happened, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It's what I saw. What I felt. The truth that came to me when I was gone. I need you to know that I understand now. Life is a gift, and I don't want to take it for granted anymore. Not with you. Not with anyone. He took the journal from my hands, his fingers brushing against mine. You really think that? After everything? I do, I said, nodding. I understand now that I've been living as if time was something I could control. But it isn't. Time is a gift, and we can't keep putting it off. You and we've wasted so much of it. I'm sorry. I want to make up for it. Michael didn't say anything at first. But then, his eyes softened, and for the first time in years, I saw him as the little boy I used to know, the one who needed me, the one I had failed. I forgive you, Dad, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I couldn't hold it in any longer. The tears came, hot and unrelenting. I had cried before, but never like this, not for myself, but for the man I had been, the father I could have been, the years I had missed. I love you, Michael, I whispered through the tears. I love you too, Dad, he said, and for the first time in a long while, we hugged. It wasn't a perfect hug, it was awkward, tentative, but it was enough. It was the start of healing. I never thought I'd feel this way. There was a time when the thought of death would paralyze me, a dark shadow hanging over every decision, every step. But now, I wake up every day with a purpose. Not the same purpose I had before, driven by fear or by the need to be more than I was. No. It's different now. I no longer live with the constant nagging fear that I could be snatched away at any moment. The truth I once feared, the truth that death was just a step in the journey, is something I've accepted. I'm not afraid anymore. Not of dying. Not of leaving. I used to believe that death meant the end. I thought it was a final curtain, a cold silence. But I learned something different when I crossed that line and came back. Death is just part of the flow. And the peace I felt on the other side, no fear, no pain, only light and love, taught me that there's nothing to fear. The end is not the end. It's just a transition. A continuation of something far greater. Now, I live every day knowing that. I know I'm not alone in this journey, that there's a bigger purpose behind every breath I take, every connection I make. And I share that understanding with others, especially those who have walked the same path I've walked, the ones who have felt that cold grip of death and returned, just like I did. That's why I started leading these meetings, these gatherings of people who have experienced NDEs. We come together to talk, to share our stories, to understand that we're not crazy or alone. We've seen the other side, and we know that life, real life, begins when we stop fearing death. It's incredible, really, how much peace can come from a group of people who have seen beyond the veil, who know that death is not the end. Together, we've created a new kind of family, a community of those who understand what it means to truly live. And through that community, I've found a deeper sense of purpose than I ever thought possible. When I look at my life now, I know I've been given a second chance. Not just to live, but to live with intention. To love without fear. To accept the unknown and trust that everything will be okay. Because death is not the end. It's a new beginning. And now, as I stand here in front of these people, as I share my story and hear theirs, I realize the truth in my heart: I am not afraid. I'm living the life I was meant to live, one step at a time, one breath at a time. But I do have one question for you, the listener, the reader, the person who is standing at the edge of your own life. Are you sure you're really living? Or are you just waiting for something to happen, waiting for that one moment, that one touch, to wake you up? Are you just existing, or are you truly living? I was dead once. But now I know, I'm alive. And I will never be afraid again. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?